Russell McMurry, Commissioner of the Georgia Department of Transportation. Welcome to InfraTalk America, and thank you for taking the time to speak with us.
Greg, it's great to be with you today.
Thank you. We're old friends, colleagues, back in my days at Federal Highway, and you have been obviously longstanding. How many years as commissioner at this point?
Got into this role in 2015, so the time's gone by quickly.
Wow, it's amazing. And not only your role as the CEO of the Georgia DOT, but you have become a rather important figure at AASHTO in the national level as the chair of the Council on Highways and Streets, which is, I think, by all accounts, one of the more important committees at AASHTO, and basically populated by the state, the chief engineers of the 52 state DOTs. And as we know, chief engineers have probably an outsized influence on many things, and including and especially project delivery, which is kind of a focus of this platform. So can you talk a little bit about, we'll start kind of with your national role, as we're here at the annual meeting of AASHTO, and you literally just completed a day and a half of meetings chairing your committee. A little bit about that process, the role you play, and the impact you think AASHTO can have, and particularly on the very important committee you chair.
Well, thanks, Greg, and again, a pleasure to be with you, and appreciate the acknowledgement of being able to serve at AASHTO. Maybe if you're here long enough, you get to do some important jobs, but it's really quite an honor to chair the Council of Highways and Streets, which, as you correctly remember, is again sort of led by the nation's chief engineers. And I had the pleasure of serving as a chief engineer at Georgia DOT for a number of years, and I can tell you that it is absolutely the hardest job at Georgia DOT. I always tell people that the chief engineers get all the problems and challenges, and the commissioner gets all the glory. And so it is certainly, I certainly acknowledge the hard work of each of our chief engineers in each state and our districts in Puerto Rico as well. So, certainly a great role. So here this year, been a big focus, obviously, of safety. We continue to focus on safety in on the nation's roadways and vulnerable road users. And so we've had a lot of conversation and focus on that. And obviously technology can drive and will drive and continue to drive our deaths and serious injuries down. So obviously a lot of opportunity there from a technology point of view. From design point of view, obviously safe systems approach is what we've been talking about this week at the meetings. And then again, looking forward to the future as we deploy the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program and getting NEVI chargers out across this nation. I told the group today, I think this is probably the one national vision that we've had in a very long time, where every state is focused on doing something similar, across the entire nation. And it's been a very long time. Maybe the interstate program was the last thing that every state had a vision to do something that was similar. I'm sure you may have
Interesting.
You may have some other. No. There may be some other things that came, but this was, to me, is one of the truly visionary things that we're doing collectively as a nation, where there's the common goal of every 50 miles, with the type of DC fast chargers you need every 50 miles on the interstate system. So pretty neat. So getting into lessons learned from the groups, the high value of meeting at the Council of Highways and Streets is always the conversation around the table for how each of the states are doing things differently. All the member states, how they approach things with a common goal, but each state has their unique nuances that they work through to deliver a program. So always fascinating to hear how states are approaching things, how they're doing things, their successes, their challenges, and we can all learn from that. And so it's really a tremendous learning opportunity that as we're around the big square, that we can learn from each other as we talk about R&D, rip off and deploy. We credit Sean Wilson from Louisiana with that, but that's really that's really some of the best takeaways is seeing how other people are doing things and then saying, hey, we can do that or we can try that. And, that's been sort of the really high value takeaway this week so far.
Sean Wilson, the great former director of the Louisiana Department of Transportation and former president of AASHTO. That's correct. For our listening audience. We try very hard to develop an audience of policymakers at the state level. It's one of our principal objectives at InfraTalk America, because what we're trying to do is create a platform where policy folks at the state level who have an interest or even part of their job is associated with the advancement of infrastructure policy and helping them understand the great work DOTs are doing. And one of our targeted technology sectors is digital project delivery. And you just talked about a great example in NEVI of a common goal, a common policy, a common funding scheme that made it possible for every state to pursue this approach. And the one thing I thought of that might be close to that is Everyday Counts, the innovation program that Federal Highway launched back in 2010, and I was privileged enough to be involved in that when I served at the time. And that sort of connected all the states to one common purpose, and that was how do we go about on a regular basis, on a program basis of identifying and deploying proven, tested, but underutilized innovation. So very similar exercise, not nearly as well funded, to say the least. But that's part of its success, I think. It's really something that state DOTs individually own. It's a commitment they've made. They've set up state transportation innovation councils and bring together not just the folks within the DOT, but contractors, outside groups, academics, to all contribute to the process of how do we improve what we do and how we do it. So we're not terribly involved in the contest or the controversy or debate over what you built, but more focused on how we build it. Whatever your philosophy is, the one known constant is state DOTs and the Federal Aid Highway Program are primarily in the business of delivering and building projects, whether that's a rehab or a new construction project. So it's bringing together a common interest in advancing the tools of the day. And the tools of today are digital. But certainly some states are much further along and much more deeply committed than others. I think Georgia's in that category of states that have a very active commitment to advancing digital technology across the board. But can you tell me about that? What are you doing, Georgia DOT doing to essentially, sort of accelerate the advancement of digital? Because doing that is no easy task, and you can maybe help share some of the obstacles or some of the challenges you face in trying to really change the way you do business, or even maybe it's a bit of a cultural shift.
Yeah, well, let me start with that one. One, thank you again for InfraTalk America for talking about the policy level, talking about those good policies, because with good policy, everybody can get in a line and move forward, and that's very critical. We're not debating the hows. We're like you said, we're putting good policy principles in place that give state DOTs the ability to move forward to address the things that we need to address critically. And so, also, I want to thank you for your work on EDC. Again, I go all over. I remember EDC 1. I remember when we started. It was just EDC at the time, and then now we're up to 8, I think.
Seven.
Seven. Yep. Yeah, 7 now.
Which
so
times 2 is 14 years of. By the time this round is, so it's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So in that though, as you talked about having industry. Contractors, vendors, DOTs all collaborate together. To me, that was the really important part of EDC, still is bringing all the entities with a singular focus for, again, a proven technology that's underutilized, or even sort of proving out some of those technologies something as simple as one of the first ones was a sloped safety edge, just making it such that, how simple is that? But it took industry to say, hey, we're willing to modify our equipment and machinery to do it if the DOTs want to do this because of safety. But the collaboration is really what it's about. And as I think about, delivering more effectively through digital means, at Georgia DOT, what it means for us is really a collaborative approach across the agency and outside of the agency to contractors and vendors, because we have to work together to be successful. Back to that policy point, we've got the sort of clarity of mission and vision. How do we deliver that? And I believe truly that innovation comes out of that collaboration. In fact, that's one of our cultures. You talked about the culture. That's one of the things that Georgia DOT that we pride ourselves on is we want a culture of innovation and collaboration, because I don't think you can have one without the other. Nobody really invented anything by themselves, right? Or, somebody may have a thought or an idea that then moves forward in a collaborative way. And it takes, it takes a lot of resources to advance different things. You're talking about, digital delivery and things like e-ticketing. Yeah, we moved into e-ticketing. I can tell you, I walked by the asphalt spreader many years and took up tickets, paper tickets, and stood near traffic, trying not to get hit, to get a ticket from a truck driver, as he's dumping that load of hot mix asphalt into the spreader. And I got, wore out many pairs of shoes and boots doing that.
And sometimes at 1 a.m. on an interstate.
That's correct. So again, here's where innovation, simple innovation and technology with digital ticketing, one is most importantly, it can save lives, and absolutely will save lives, because we don't have people in those precarious situations. Again, we've been able to remove that. But again, also digitally to be able to manage files, keep up with those things, not having volumes of paper and boxes. And I worked on construction, had many projects, and, we'd have filing cabinets full of just paper. And that's days of old. There's no need to have that today when there's technology that exists that we can work more effectively and efficiently. And we have to work more efficiently because obviously we have more work to do than ever. And I don't think anybody says, hey, I got too many people, no matter who you are. So, again, looking for those opportunities. But at Georgia DOT, that focus of culture, it's easy to say those things, but it's harder to actually implement. So you have to give some runway for staff to create, try, and sometimes fail. And the fail is the hard thing. I'm an engineer, so, nobody likes to fail. We always want factors of safety. We want redundancy. We're going to make sure we're successful. And also failing in the public sector can be very bad. Private companies can do R&D. They can go off in private areas, test things. It fails. Nobody knows about it. They just keep reinventing. In the public sector, failure is not celebrated. It's frowned upon. Right. So, but we have to encourage our staff to innovate and then collaborate to make it a success, and try to manage and minimize. Obviously, we'd never do anything to harm anybody,
of course.
Or but just in when I say failure, I'm thinking it just doesn't work. But what we can learn is, well, that didn't work. Maybe we learned something else along the way that we can. And I tell our staff, we don't want to be on the bleeding edge, but we want to be the first drop of blood behind the bleeding edge. We'll let somebody else get the first blood, but we'll be right behind it and trying to come in on the backside and learn and deploy as fast as we can. And again, we're okay if we deploy something and it doesn't meet our need at the end of the day. Well, we tried.
Right.
And the other saying I always tell our folks is, let's be accused of trying. Not sitting still and being idle, but let's move forward.
Yeah, you had mentioned e-ticketing and your experience climbing, up and down trucks, handing tickets off or collecting tickets, in the middle of the night on a, night work on an interstate. The safety issue was, I'm so glad you brought that up, so pronounced. The other benefit, of course, in advancing digital and whatever, we'll continue the example of e-ticketing. There was a I once said paper tickets are where data go to die. And we did a film about e-ticketing, and it showed on the film a picture of these trailers parked in the back lot of freight trailers full of, open the door, 10 high, full of paper tickets, and on the box it said, destroy 2025. So literally the visual manifestation of where data go to die. And that data can become very valuable and will become very valuable in the future. To the point where I think it could become a revenue source for DOTs, because what we don't know yet is what that data is going to leverage in terms of benefit. There are applications for that data that haven't been invented yet. So the commitment of DOTs collectively nationwide to sort of share a commitment to get there as quick as we can will save billions in the long run in terms of cost savings. One estimate put it at 15 to 20% of fully digitized approach to project delivery. It's huge money in the Federal Aid Highway Program.
Sure, absolutely.
So there's a lot of good reasons to make that commitment. But as you said, the change doesn't come easy. Let me ask you this, from the standpoint of leading change, risk aversion is a big factor, particularly in the public sector with public sector engineers who are the first ones on the chopping block if something goes wrong, and that's a real issue. So the extent to which, how do you deal with that? How do you demonstrate to your frontline troops who want to innovate, who want to be champions of change, how do you demonstrate to them that you've got their back?
Yeah, you absolutely have to message that. And we do several things. One of the things we're very proud of is we have sort of this middle management development program. And we have some one-on-ones with our chief engineer, myself, our deputy commissioner, treasurer, and we sit down and have some roundtable discussions. And we're very focused in those roundtable discussions to talk about, about those very things, about innovating and what we want you to do. And I mean, who doesn't go against their own idea, right? I mean, if some, people like to go forward on an idea that they have that they want to advance. And so you have to build some confidence that it's okay. And we actually do sort of the Shark Tank approach at that management development program where they have to come up, we put them in teams, they have to come up with some innovation to make it better. That's my other mantra at DOT is make it better. So they have to come up with a project that's usually cross-cutting across because the groups are from different different makeups of offices and divisions, and so they come up with these proposals and they pitch them to us, and then we say congratulations.
What a great idea!
Yeah, now you have to go implement it, and so we've saved money, we've saved time, we've improved processes. Some of that was not e-ticketing on construction, but getting rid of some paper pushing that was going around. That's like, well, why are we still doing that? Was because, like a good DOT, because we always have, so we can find efficiencies. And so, but we model that and show them that they can be successful. And then not only that, but we support them going forward in implementing that by linking them to people that can help them be successful, usually from, one division to another division or office to office. And so you have to sort of model that, demonstrate that, and that's one way that really sort of permeates sort of the middle management area, of which in my experience here is usually where things sort of die as well. You're talking about your paper go to die, is you have, you got some great young staff that maybe has, a lot of innovations, a lot of good thoughts, they'll get shot down. You don't want to get them shot down. You want to keep those people engaged and learning and moving forward. And that middle management needs to know that it's okay to let them go try that. It's going to take some time, but let them work on some project. Let them work on innovation. So, it's by no means are we perfect, at all. But you've got to promote it. You got to know that it's okay. Again, as you said, we can't fail, something that would be catastrophic or, safety related, but we certainly can try to do a lot of things. Technology, as we're talking about, is really important, and how things are moving so fast in technology now. We're doing a lot with ATMS and connected vehicles and pushing the envelope on that, because again, from a safety point of view, we want to be on the leading edge of deploying CV2X technology in our traffic signals such that we don't have one corridor that maybe has CV2X. We want the entire grid network to have CV2X so that you have a system of reliability when cars have the chipsets, which will be very soon, that will be able to communicate with traffic signals.
Remarkable.
So I mean, but we're pushing that, and is that a big gamble? I don't think so. And we've got two different technologies out there that now sort of work together, and so we want to be on the early side of that from a safety point of view. And we've sort of gone all in as one example of pushing and promoting technology and being a little bit leaning forward on things that are not unproven, but certainly have not been widely adopted.
Right. The Shark Tank approach.
Yeah.
You heard it here first, folks. I think that's a brilliant approach. Not only are you inviting them to come forward with ideas on how to improve whatever it is their focus is, but you're following through and providing them support and collaboration and putting teams together to make it successful in its implementation. That's it's a very complete approach to helping your team with the confidence they need to come forward and advance innovation. So I expect there are versions of that go on in DOTs across the country, but you seem to have taken it to another level. So it's very impressive.
Well, thank you. I mean, again, we continue to try to build and figure out how to get that culture to where we want it to be. And obviously, that's there's a saying, if you don't define the culture, it'll define itself.
Right.
So
right.
We really want that, and it's also again for just overall employee retention and support is knowing that they have the ability to innovate and to lean forward and to do things. That's rewarding when you feel like, hey, who wasn't assigned a special project somewhere along their career that it's like, oh, they're interested in me enough to assign me a special project to do something. Wow, that's a little bit of a feather in your cap, so to speak. So we want people to feel that way, that they have the ability that they can do it. There's an old YouTube sort of social media, clip from Georgia Tech. If you can do that, if you go to Georgia Tech, because that's what we're saying at DOT, well, you can do that. If you believe it, you think you can do it, we're going to let you go try to do it, and let you innovate.
Sounds like a great place to work.
Well, we try to. I mean, you gotta make it fun. It's a rewarding jobs, no matter what you're doing in transportation, and trying to get that linkage so that people understand the value of what they bring and how they can make it better. Again, my mantra is always, can we just find a way to make it better? Don't have to make it perfect, but can we make it better?
Well, better than anybody, the ongoing conversations that are occurring at every meeting like this we go to on workforce. The challenges that every DOT is facing, a lot of institutions, a lot of businesses are facing to fill needs in their workforce in the context of a state DOT, a public agency, and attracting public engineers, or engineers, I should say, to public service. We have this dynamic where the baby boom generation engineers are, retiring rapidly. The education system, I guess, isn't producing nearly enough engineers to meet the demand, which, of course, under classic supply and demand law means they're going to get more expensive. And I still say we, but the public sector doesn't do very well competing against the private sector for that kind of talent. So what do you think can be done to sort of help give us some sort of a fair, make it a fair fight? And one thought is, as you digitize the process, as you digitize your agencies, do you think that is going to become somewhat of a recruiting tool to try and get that next generation workforce interested in civil engineering to begin with, or other technical disciplines that state DOTs need? I mean, data scientists are now a new discipline that DOTs are becoming in need of. So just from the standpoint of your workforce challenges, the evolution to technology, does all of that present some opportunity to solve your workforce issues?
Yeah, I think it does, and I think it's twofold. Actually, I think the college students have so much deeper knowledge and understanding of technology and things that are emerging from digital infrastructure that it's going to be it's a lot easier for them to come in and probably make us better than where we think we have to get to. From my old days with scales and triangles and T-bars, trying to get to a digital point of view. That's how old I am. And so I think it's a lot easier for them, but we can't go market and message and recruit on, here's this old stuff we're doing. We need to be accepting and be ready for digital infrastructure. And I mean, a lot of our designers, actually, well, not a lot, several of our designers have actually gone into colleges and universities and teaching classes, and they're showing how we're doing 3D design and how that can translate ultimately into digital, the digital infrastructure ecosystem. And so there's a lot of opportunities there as you're talking about sort of the workforce challenges. And the other thing is just sort of marketing 101. I'm an engineer, as I said, so I think I can be a marketer. I'm not. So I recognize that failure pretty quickly. But
you're not so bad.
having the right team and our recruitment folks are really revisioning how we market to students. And especially with this generation, is they really want to do something that makes society better. And that's sort of the essence of civil engineering. I tell everybody all the time is, if you want to be in civil engineering, you're here to make mankind better. You're here to help mankind, if it's transportation, water, whatever the discipline is in civil. That's the genesis of it. And this generation is very interested in giving back, doing something bigger than just a job. And so we're trying to market this is not a job. You're making something better. You're providing mobility opportunities across all modes. And we try to focus on those things. In environmental and ecology, and archaeology. I mean, there's a lot of touch points that it takes to deliver projects and programs. And so we're trying to say, hey, this is not a job. This isn't a government job. You're here making your community better. You're making Georgia better. You're making the nation better. So we're trying to, again, change our marketing. And we've had a lot of a great acceptance of that. The other thing is trying to get into colleges and universities. As I said, we had some roadway design engineers actually go teach some transportation engineering classes and get them in there. And then we can show off look at all the cool stuff we're working on. And most people, I know when I was in school, I didn't really understand what the work was. I understood learning the engineering principles, but how do you translate that into the output? And so we're being able to do that and had some success. So are we fully staffed? No, far from it. But we are making gains and are seeing more interest. Pay is always is an issue. Our General Assembly and our governor have been very supportive that we've been able to raise the wages and try to make it more competitive, but also provide that work-life balance. We still have a hybrid approach with telework and trying to, again, balance that out but also provide those learning opportunities. So it's fun. That's always the challenge. And hopefully, sort of back to my Shark Tank thing, if we can work on retention, recruitment gets a lot easier because you don't have to recruit as hard.
Well put. And as I stated earlier, I think our focus audience, if you will, our policymakers at the state level. And certainly at the federal level as well. And helping policymakers understand that state DOTs, not your father's state DOT, none of them, the scale and the scope of what state DOTs are responsible for in the context of the full transportation system, as you said, it's integral, essential to the economy, to safety, to quality of life. And there's a much broader level of commitment to alternative transportation in parts of communities that may be underserved. And so the sort of equity priority that certainly this administration has established, it's all critically important to how communities work.
Absolutely.
So the work that you're doing at the state DOT today is nothing like it was 20 years ago. So I think policymakers need to understand that. They need to understand that, the money that they allocate has got to be beyond just the money for the bridge or the highway. But it's for all these things that support how you do that well. And that's kind of what I hear you saying. And so today's DOT has a much broader set of challenges and responsibilities than it ever has. And with EJA, with the bipartisan infrastructure law, as it's called, that has sort of supercharged everything. So the demands on state DOTs are extraordinary. And by all accounts, they're being executed very effectively. So it's an important message that I like to spread to the policy folks, that they need to approach their state DOTs as not only as the highway and bridge folks, but as part of their economic development team, as part of their community involvement team. The role that you play is just so critical. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think transportation is just foundational. As you talked about, I mean, it's just foundational for everything. Talk about economic development. Wow, we've got like a manufacturing revolution going on in Georgia right now with all these new manufacturing jobs coming in. Obviously, transportation infrastructure is critical for any manufacturing process of getting goods or getting raw products and materials into a factory and the widget out the backside and transport it to where it needs to be. But again, down to just community, just down to small community projects that are so meaningful and impactful for quality of life. So, I mean, you got economic development, quality of life issues. Obviously, for Georgia, you get into Metro Atlanta and people mobility of, moving 6.5–7 million people around Metro Atlanta. Those are challenges. And, just in Georgia, for Georgia's point of view, very diverse state, mountains to coast and rural to, super urban with Metro Atlanta. So the diversity of the what you're trying to do from transportation, you're right. It's not just the old build a road, build a bridge. I mean, as we talked about digital, we're actually very excited about working to deploy broadband across all our interstates and then ultimately commercialize it.
A great example of a new set of responsibilities for state DOTs, broadband.
Who would have thought of that 10 years ago, right? And so, and even to commercialize that potentially to help serve the unserved areas with broadband in rural Georgia. So if we can provide that access to the right-of-way, to the interstate right-of-way, it may help light up part of rural and unserved Georgia. So it's the transportation touches so many things in so many ways that you may not think about on a common day. So I'm glad that InfraTalk America is talking about those policies, those foundational policy things that our lawmakers need to be thinking about and how important transportation is from all those many different viewpoints. It's not just we're trying to get down the road in our car to get to our, next place we need to be, or freight moving. It's all the above. It's the entire ecosystem of how transportation affects so many things.
I served in the 10 years it took to reauthorize Safety Lou and 32 continuing resolutions, and it was 10 years of horrible position to put state DOTs in because you couldn't predict what your revenue sources were going to be. Therefore, you couldn't do a very good job planning your projects. So we, in the current era, between the federal largesse and the, kudos to the Congress, kudos to the president, the executive branch for making that happen. The question I have is, we're in our third year of the bipartisan infrastructure law and this largesse, and I think we need to do at least as well in the reauthorization 3 years from now. I know it's a little soon to be talking about reauthorization, but from your perch as a leader in AASHTO and obviously as a key leader in a key state DOT, what do you think? What are your expectations or your hopes and dreams for reauthorization 3 years from now? Because that conversation will begin soon.
It absolutely needs to start soon, and let's hope it's not Safety Lou for your marathon.
I hope we never go through that again.
That was more than a marathon that you went through, and you're right. Without sustainable long-term funding, it is absolutely hard to plan and deliver projects. And one of my things I say often is transportation it takes too long. It's just complicated and it's hard because to do big things, unfortunately takes a long time. It takes lots of dollars. It takes a long time. And that's just the facts of the matter. So we need to have, again, after IIJA, EJA, bipartisan infrastructure law, what you want to call it, we need to continue that pace at least. We don't need to go back to before. Truly appreciative of the historic level of investment from IIJA, from water, broadband, energy, and transportation. Truly transformative. I mean, I can't imagine where we would be today if that landmark piece of legislation had not passed. It would not. I don't think we'd be sitting here having this conversation.
Very important.
It was truly historic.
Yep.
But we've got to continue to build, because as this nation continues to grow, as Georgia's continuing to grow, I mean, again, manufacturing revolution, population growth. I mean, there's so many good things going on that rely on transportation in any form, and so we've got to be able to continue to have the funding going forward, that we keep this nation and our state on the trajectory that we need to be on, that what people expect. The other thing I like to tell, when I speak publicly is, the no build or do nothing does not mean things stay the way they are. And that most people think, well, if we don't do anything, it'll just be fine. No, everything's going to continue to degrade, whether it's wear and tear, whether it's congestion, lack of mobility, economic impact. So the do nothing is not an option. So we absolutely need to have the conversation. I think it will be an interesting one as we continue to see more EV deployment. Obviously, Highway Trust Fund is obviously always talked about, has not been dealt with. So, funding is always an issue of how do you get at that. But I think what we have to do is just continue to educate what the needs are, so that we, again, have the infrastructure that we all want and desire that keeps this nation moving forward.
Commissioner, it's been an absolute pleasure and a great conversation, and very much appreciated. And I don't get a chance to say this very often, but thank you for your service, not only in the state of Georgia, but certainly to the nation through the important work you're doing at AASHTO.
Well, Greg, all my pleasure. Thank you, and appreciate the great friendship we've enjoyed and all the support you've given me for many years now. So, like I say, we go back to EDC, the original. It wasn't one. It was just EDC. So thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
You got it.